Hi, it's Barrie Dowsett. I'm the CEO of Myriad Associates, and welcome to this video, which has been filmed from our offices in Market Harborough, which is right at the bottom of Leicestershire. And this video is all about maximising R&D tax claims. I've been involved in making claims over 20 years, and I've of course got huge amounts of experience, and what I want to do is share some of that experience and some knowledge with you today in regards to R&D tax claims and how they can be maximised. So I'm just going to go on to the next slide, so just bear with. Let's have a look. Transition, excellent. So maximising R&D tax claims. I'm going to cover the following areas. First of all, what projects qualify, what's claimable R&D costs. Quite an important area is actually the R&D claim report, which I always recommend you should send to HM Review and Customs. It needs to be robust, detailed, and needs to cover absolutely the key areas. But I'm actually going to share with you one of Myriad's templates in actual fact, so you get a flavour of the level of detail that is required, and also the structure and our approach with R&D tax claims. And then the last thing I touch on is key strategies for maximising the R&D tax claim. So yeah, it'd be great. So what I'm going to do now is going to just pause this video, and I'm going to move back to my desk, and then we're going to continue and I go into a bit more detail. That's great. Okay, let me pause. See you in a bit. Okay, so I've just resumed recording now sat behind my desk. So the first area, in actual fact, in my opinion, this is the most important area, is regarding the actual projects and activities that qualify. Now typically, if you're developing or improving a new product, a process, creating a service, or refining that service, or developing some software, they're the kind of things that would typically qualify for R&D tax. However, it tends not to be the whole development process. It tends to focus on the technological, scientific, the advancements, and that may be within a project, a company project. It may be R&D elements within that, and it's important that any advancement that the project is seeking to make is done at the beginning of, identified at the beginning of the project. And also what's important is to absolutely ensure that it's an advancement within the actual field, not just within your own company, but within that particular field. So if you give an example for that, if you try and develop a new product, it may be that product is very similar to what's out there, but you could be using a completely new material that was not designed because you want to reduce the cost, you want to make it lighter, these kind of things. And providing that you can't get your hands on the knowledge, capability within the public domain, then that's absolutely fine. So yeah, but it's got to be, that's one of the key things. It's got to be an advancement in science and technology. And the other key area is there's got to be some technical uncertainties, and that's got to be in the eyes of a competent professional, so someone that with knowledge that's operating in that particular field, looks at the project, realises there's some technical uncertainties, scratches their head and thinking, how am I going to overcome this? There's nothing out there to help me. Or if there is something out there, it could be a competitor's product that already exists, but you can't get your hands on that know-how, that capability, that's just not available in the public domain, then that's fine. You can continue to claim. Now, a lot of all this advancement uncertainties is wrapped up in the BEIS guidance, which I'm going to look at in a minute with you. It's fair to say it's very broad on purpose, and therefore quite a lot of interpretation that is left for either yourselves and also for HM Review and Customs to make. But the underlying principles are quite clear. I'm just going to go through that with you now. Okay, so yeah, this is the BIS guidance, and this is something that is referred to by HM Revenue and Customs to the caseworkers if they want to validate a particular claim. As I said, this is the #1 criteria for any R&D tax claim. There's got to be an advancement in science or technology, and there's got to be technical uncertainties in the eyes of a competent professional. I know I may repeated that, and you're thinking, come on, Barry, you know, we get the message, but it's extremely, extremely important. So what we're going to do now, I am going to go down to number 6 on the BEIS guidance. So this is talking about advance in science and technology. It's talking about, absolutely for good reason, it's in bold here. It's the overall knowledge or capability that you are trying to create over and above what is the knowledge and capability within the field, not just the company's own knowledge and capability. Within the field, once again, I'll mention this, it's extremely important. If it's not in the public domain, therefore you can't get your hands on that know-how, that IP, then you are able to still make a claim, i.e. someone's really developed a product or the software, but you cannot get your knowledge on the underlying science or technology. That's extremely clear. So that is a very important area, number 6 here. Notice it uses the word knowledge or capability in the field of science or technology, which is great. Also appreciable improvement, you see that in 9. So appreciable improvement is a significant step change. It's not just a little tweak, it's just not a refinement, it's actually you're taking a significant step change in the technology or the science and bringing that up. That's in there as well. I'm just going to keep going. So once you've established that your project from the outset does contain an advancement in science or technology, then the next test is to make sure there's some form of scientific or technological uncertainty. And once again, that's got to be in the eyes of a competent professional, somebody that is knowledgeable within that particular field. That's extremely important. So once you've met those 2 criteria, I think pretty much you've got that within a project. So a lot of projects company-related projects to develop for example, a new product may have a number of elements within that would qualify. Once again, it's the work undertaken to resolve the uncertainties related to the advance is the areas that you can actually qualify. So that's great. So let's just go back to the slide where we were. So advancements we've covered. It's got to be an uncertainty as a competent professional, and the activities within a project that qualify. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the boundaries here. It's quite important because I've mentioned that you've got a project. I've mentioned that there are an R&D elements within that. The starting point for activities that qualify is when you start to undertake work to resolve those technical uncertainties, science and technical uncertainties. So when you start work, and the end is when you've completed that work, either they've been resolved or they've been abandoned. I mean, absolutely, if you are unable to make the advancement and because you were unable to overcome the uncertainties, the project was abandoned, or the R&D element of the project, that still qualifies. That's still, that's a strong evidence that you are trying to push the boundaries of science and technology in that particular field. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So the other thing about activity within the project, you've got direct and you've got indirect. So direct are people that are engaged directly, of course, makes a lot of sense. So they are trying to resolve the uncertainties, etc. And then you've got something called qualifying indirect activities. That's the support staff for those directs. It could be the people that are preparing the technical documentation. It could be related to general staff in terms of maintaining equipment, for example. So you've got your engineers now. But in essence, qualifying indirect activity, you can really go down to one level. So let's say you've got somebody in HR that's responsible for recruiting a technician, and that technician is involved heavily in R&D. Fine, that time spent by the HR and certainly the line manager, that's okay. But if you've got someone who's then doing the payroll, for example, or supporting service within HR, you wouldn't be able to go down to that level. So it's more like you can go one level, you can't go down to 2 in terms of the support staff. Okay, cool. So that's that covered. The next area is going to be about claimable R&D costs. Now, the first thing I'm going to start with is staff. This is employees of the company. You can claim for their gross pay, their national insurance company's contribution. You can claim for their pension costs. That's once again the company's contribution. And something which this is what we call reimbursed employee expenses, which is where the individual puts himself and pays for travel expenses, subsistence, etc. related to R&D activities, and providing the company reimburses the employee, so the employee pays first, company reimburses, fine, you can include that cost, actually as staff costs. Staff costs as well. What's important here is when you talk about the kind of staff, yes, you've got those like, it could be engineers, if it's software claim, it could be developers, but you also have an R&D team, so you're going to have someone involved with, supervision, line manager, you're going to get potentially somebody from quality insurance, somebody from management. They're all involved, in that particular R&D project and involved in deciding how to and when in terms of the technical uncertainty. So the project's normally a lot wider than what people think, and that's quite important. Then you've got subcontractors. So this is where you have gone out and you've requested some work to be done by a contractor, and therefore they'll work on that, and you'll then purchase those goods or those services from that contractor. Quite interesting here, if you've got individuals, so self-employed, freelancers, they can be included providing they're actively involved. So in the project, you give them direction, they're hands-on, or they're contributing directly to the R&D activity rather than providing. What you can't include is professional services, so people are giving opinions, advice, etc. Patent attorneys is one which you would not be able to claim. So that's fine. You do have something called software. So that's any software licenses that you've purchased and are used to help in terms of coordination. So project management software, for example, that would certainly, or CAM type software, include that. That's absolutely fine. Once again, needs to be apportioned to R&D activities. You've got consumables and transformed components, or anything that's consumed in the R&D activity, the work undertaken. So if you've got materials that are consumed, you might have electricity, gas that's consumed in manufacturing trials, or portioned because you've got some kind of service, also office-based personnel, and they're involved with software programming, etc. Of course, they need heat and light. And then you've got this thing called transformed components. So transformed components is what it's trying to say here is that if you're purchasing small components and you transform them into something larger, and they can't be used in the original state, then that's absolutely fine because you've transformed those, and that comes under the category of consumables. So if you're developing a prototype machine, great example there, you're buying component parts for it, you're utilising those, they can no longer be used in the original states because they've now been integrated into one prototype machine, then that's absolutely fine. And something that's coming in from accounting periods 1st of April 2023, so any accounting period starting on or after, data and cloud computing. HM Revenue and Customs have recognised that that's quite an important aspect now in terms of software development and also costs required to support R&D activities, which is absolutely fantastic news. So they're the key claimable R&D areas. Just a quick takeaway point on that one is that the staff, it's an R&D team. You can also include any kind of staff agency workers, so you come from an agency, employment agency, working the project, you can include those, obviously once again related to the R&D activities. So that's what you've got on that one. Now, I am going to share with you R&D claim reports, and I'm going to actually give you the Myriad's R&D claim report, which is what we use for our clients. Normally it's completed by ourselves here, by our tech analysts and writers. So I'm going to share that with you. Just going to go across now. Here we go. So this will give you a good flavour of what we suggest. And in many ways, in HR Revenue and Customs have now got this online form that you have to complete from the 1st of August 2023. But what we will also do in addition to that is provide an R&D tax relief reports, because the level of detail that we provide is much more than actually required by the online form. And there's very good reasons for that. You know, we want to make sure that the claim is robust, detailed, and answer all the questions, because what you want to avoid is a compliance check from HR Revenue and Customs, because they get quite tenacious. They send you lots of questions, etc., etc. So yeah, you don't want to be highlighting yourself as a candidate for a compliance check. Would not be great. So yeah, so in terms of the contents that we provide here, you can see we give, you know, we talk about an introduction, and that's normally talking about, you know, the guidance and what we have looked at in terms of the BEIS and also the corporation tax guidance. And we also speak to our clients about, you know, what the requirements are, so they're fully aware. So we talk about that, we do a company introduction, we talk about our approach as well, and how we run through the various projects with the client and explain what the costs that they can claim. We then talk about what scheme it is. Is it the SME scheme, or is it the what's called RDEC for the large? And then we go into the financial details as well. So we kind of like do an R&D expenditure qualification, just to talk about what costs have been included and what costing methodology we've used, and the things we've not included is extremely important. We look at detailed schedule of qualifying expenditure, and we calculate if there's R&D tax credit payable. We'll put that into the report. And then this report, and this is one of the key areas, is the technical narratives, or technical reports as we call them. And we go into a lot more detail there. I will share our example with you very shortly. I'm just going to flick through the claim reports, and you can see the kind of information that we put in here as well. So this is the introduction, as I mentioned, referring to the BEIS guidance, as well as the Corporation Tax Act 2009, etc., etc. Talks about the approach that we take in making a claim. We talk about the discussion of the qualifying activities, the fact that we've looked at, you know, the background of the eligible activities, the life cycle, definition of the boundaries. The baseline position is extremely important. So what you're trying to say at the start of the project, what was the baseline positions in terms of science or technology within that particular field? That was known within the public domain. That's important, because that's what you're measuring yourself against, i.e. to ensure that you can make that appreciable improvement, or provide evidence to justify that what your project does actually qualify. That's important. We talk about, of course, the number one question: what was the advanced sort? You know, what's the scientific, technological advanced sort, and the uncertainties encountered. And we also talk about the work identified as not being eligible within the project. There will be activities within the project that are either routine or not to resolve the uncertainties, and therefore those activities and the related costs cannot be included. So yeah, we go through all that. We talk about, that's about the boundaries, life cycle and boundaries of a project. So we have a really pretty nice image on that one. And then we just go through here some information regarding the company, the size, to make sure if it's an SME or a large or RDEC. And we keep going. There's our qualifying expenditure analysis that we do. We talk about any grants or subsidies, any capitalised expenditure, the costing methodology. We keep going and going and going. There we go. And then if we pop in there the amount that's to be claimed, i.e. tax credit payable, what you receive from HR Revenue and Customs. And then this is where we put in, which we put in, actually comes from pretty comprehensive spreadsheets that we have that itemises all the eligible costs, categorised, for example, staff, categorised by person, and also allocated to each project as well, which is quite important to allocate the costs of your R&D to each project, because this is something that is now being asked on the online form known as a G form from HM Review and Customs. So yeah, keep going and going and going, so you can see. And then we also a list of the personnel that's included in the claim. So that's the R&D claim report. I'm going to pop back now, and so what we suggest, I've given you an example here of what a great R&D claim report looks like, one that we use at Myriad. That's our template. It's always good to include certainly a quote from the competent professional, the knowledgeable person within your business, but also any third-party expert opinions that can substantiate why you are claiming that your project is an advancement in science and technology. That's really good. I also strongly suggest that your record keeping, and when I say record keeping, I'm talking about staff time allocated to projects, of course, all the standard stuff, copy of subcontractor invoices, to provide evidence of the baseline position in terms of technology. That's extremely important, because you have to justify why you consider that you're creating additional knowledge and capability over and above that baseline position. As I said, extremely important. But yeah, record keeping. And I've noticed recently that's becoming more and more requested by HM Review and Customs, and the level of details is increasing. For example, they've recently been asking for a project plan, and that project plan needs to show the deliverables, the areas of work and the team involved, and any documentation to support the work that was undertaken. So yeah, there are certainly increasing the amount of evidence to provide. Oh, sorry, I've just gone forward one too many. Okay, fine, superb. Record keeping. Now, what I'm going to do now is go across and have a quick look at the technical report. I know you've all been waiting for this. Here we go. So this is Myriad's technical report that we use, which forms part of the R&D claim report. We talk about here what the commercial company project was. We talk about what the R&D elements or projects were within that commercial or that company project, and we list those and describe them further down. We talk about the non-R&D elements, the work streams within the project as well, just to provide HM Review and Customs with, that we have actually considered the qualifying R&D work streams and the non-qualifying work streams within the project. So we just do that as well. I'm going to go through this. So R&D project, we start finish time, i.e. in terms of the R&D boundaries, so when was the technical uncertainty first identified, the work done, and when that was completed, of course, that's important. We talk about the competent professional, we give an overview of the project, we talk about the existing science, technology and baseline position, we talk about the advances sought, which is an extremely important area, just there. And within those advances sought, we then talk about a technological science or technology uncertainty. And I think you will find, let's have a look, there's there we go, certainty one. And then what was the work undertaken to resolve that science or technology? And that work undertaken is actually done for the accounting period. So yeah, you include it for the accounting period. There we go. We go and talk about at the end of the accounting period, what was the unresolved technical uncertainties, i.e. stuff they're still working on, which will be carried forward to the next accounting period. And then we have this one thing called an R&D project timeline. So we want to start date, end date of each stage of the project and what the tasks were, and also who was involved, i.e. the R&D team. We have that. We then provide a list of the evidence of technical work. This is so if HM Review and Customs ask for documents, all we're doing here is explaining the documents that the company has. We're actually not providing those documents at this stage, but if they do ask for it, they can see a reference here that we have these documents, and therefore they may request them. That's great. We have our personnel that's included in the claim. And you can see the level of detail we go there. What's quite important is the project role and responsibility. What is their role within the project? And so not really, it might not be their job title, It's more about the project role regarding the work to resolve the science and technical uncertainties and the responsibilities they had. Okay, so that's our template of our wonderful, wonderful technical reports that we use for our clients. So, key strategies for maximising R&D tax claims. Okay, number one, get your team together. R&D, so get your, if it's an R&D manager, your chief engineer, tech director, and get somebody from maybe on the software side, because you can obviously have software projects that qualify. Get them together and go through a kind of project. So if you're developing a new product, a new process, piece of very clever software or whatever, and talk about those projects. And within those projects, so let's call it a company project, then dig a little bit deeper and talk about the technology layers within that project and whether you consider, one, do you have the capability internally to resolve the technical uncertainties? If you do, that wouldn't qualify. If you haven't got the capability internally, can you go out and find that knowledge and that know-how on the public domain, i.e. within the field? And if you can't, then you're probably ticking another box that says this project's probably got qualifying activities. So yeah, team effort, I can't stress enough. Talk about the projects and focus on the tech advancement and science. What's unique about, what's innovative about your products, your process. What is the step change that you're trying to achieve over and above what current level, i.e. the baseline level of science and technology was at the start of the project. I cannot stress enough about keeping records. This is something which HMRC and Customs are asking more and more for. So project plans, evidence of the research you've done to not only determine the baseline position, but the research you've done to make the advancement in science and technology. And please record if you can, staff time against the projects. Now, I appreciate it's difficult to classify between qualifying R&D activities within a project and non-qualifying activities, but if you start recording your time to the project and then make an assessment of the R&D intensity, i.e. of qualifying activities, you could then make that approach. So if you've got a project that's got 40% R&D activities involved with it and you've got your chief engineer involved with it, then you think, well, okay, I can apply, he's heavily involved, he's direct, I can apply 40% to it. So please try and keep time records at a company project level. That's the minimum in my opinion. And then if you can talk about R&D intensity, to say how much time was spent on those activities to resolve the tech uncertainty, great, fantastic. And also try and, wherever possible, try and track and allocate your costs to each project. So you maybe want cost buckets, for example. If your accounting software can go not just a cost center but to a cost unit, for example, absolutely fantastic. Really try and track project costs, and once again within that project, you're going to have to work out which elements or what those costs actually relate to qualifying activities. Once again, extremely important. Okay, trying to think what else are those key strategies. I suppose the option is also to use an advisor that's got experience, etc. The landscape is changing. HMRC and Customs have certainly increased the compliance check, so I would strongly recommend you take some advice in this area. I believe the advice you get is adding value, and I think your claim would be increased, and certainly you would not fall down in the pit holes. As I said, you don't want to go down that trapdoor of HMRC and Customs and end up getting a wonderful compliance check. In fact, not that wonderful. So there you go. Anyway, so finally, I'd like to say thank you. My email's there, telephone number, visit our website. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions, please reach out to us. There'll be other videos coming up as well. I will touch on innovation grants at some point as well. So yeah, keep watching, enjoy.